We make a motion sensor that will detect motion. It's passive infrared detector, so it's going to detect the IR spectrum of light, which is basically heat. And it's going to look for human heat around 98 degrees. It's going to take a thermal heat signature of a picture and then see how that heat signature changes. If it's a big enough change in the heat signature, the passive infrared detector or motion detector will detect that as motion. And if it detects it as motion, it's going to turn on the landscaping lights for a predefined amount of time, adjustable anywhere between 5 minutes up to an hour. The motion sensor can learn into multiple receivers, so if you have a large job site, you can take one motion sensor, learn it into all of the lights that you want activated with the motion sensor. When somebody walks in front of the motion sensor, it'll turn on the lights. People will install the motion sensors at the front of their driveway. One thing you want to watch out for is it's a heat detector, and it's basically detecting the thermal heat signature change, and when it's a large enough change, it'll detect that as motion. So for example, you have a car where the engine block is not hot yet and you're leaving the driveway, it's possible that it might not detect the car as well as it would when the car is coming home and the engine block's hot.
How far away can I install the motion sensor from the receivers?
So the motion sensor is going to work about 100 feet away from any receiver, and you can go anywhere in between. Sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the environment. The things you want to watch out for are metal. You never want to encase your receiver in metal. Line of sight is obviously the best way to have the RF work the best. The motion sensor out of the box is going to come in a setting where it's going to activate all three zones. Again, it's going to activate the zones you're wiring up to the red stripe wires. There is a way where if you pull apart the motion sensor that you can have it activate zone 1 only, zone 2 only, or you can keep it like it is out of the box in its factory settings where it's operating all three zones. There's jumper pins, and the configuration of the jumper pin is going to determine which zone the motion control turns on. When both of the jumper pins are on their respective left sides, which is 15K and high, it's going to be all three zones. If you take the jumper pin and pull it out, and it's a very small jumper pin, you want to make sure that you don't lose this when you take it out. And you put the jumper pin in a different configuration so that it's on the 25K and the high. That would be zone 1 only for the motion sensor. If you take the pin from the 25 or from the high, if you take the pin from the high and put it on the low, and now both of the jumper switches are on their respective right sides, that's going to be zone 2 only. The options for the motion control are all three zones where the jumper pins are on 15K and high, and then configuration for zone 1 is 25K and high, and then the operation for zone 2 is going to be 25K and low. There is no way at this time to operate the motion control to turn on zone 3 only. What I'd recommend, if you want zone 3 only, take your wires, put them on zone 1, and then have the motion control operate zone 1. So the motion control is going to be activated in a night only mode out of the box when you get it from the factory. There's a way with the green programmer to adjust the motion control settings to be day and night or night only. So right now the time of day that the motion control is going to activate is from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. You're able to adjust that window of time for the motion control operating in night only mode by tricking the real-time clock. So say you want that window of operation to be at a later time, what I would do is I'd advance all of the clocks a little bit forward so that it thinks that it's an earlier time than it really is, or a later time, depending on where you want that window of operation to be. So you're able to change the duration of the motion sensor when it keeps the lights on with the green programmer. If you turn on your green digital readout programmer and you scroll down to where it says motion control settings, you press enter, and right now it's going to be 5 minutes night only. That's how the motion sensor comes out of the box. You're able to adjust that 5-minute time in increments of 5 minutes, and you can change it for how long you want the lights to stay on after it's activated by the motion.
What's the default time it comes with?
The default time that the motion control comes with is 5 minutes night only. That means that when it sees the motion, it's going to activate the lights, turn them on for 5 minutes, and then it's going to turn the lights off.
And then what happens if there's motion at 4 minutes and 59 seconds?
So what's going to happen with the motion sensor is once it sees motion, it's going to wait another 4 minutes before it can see motion again. So in your testing, many times you'll take the motion sensor and you'll check it and, oh cool, it turned on the lights, and I'm going to turn off the lights immediately. It's not going to be able to detect motion again for another 4 minutes. The motion sensor is not able to be programmed as far as duration you want the motion to leave the lights on with the black programmer that comes with the zone control. You're going to need to get the green programmer box in order to adjust the duration for the motion control as far as how long you want it to stay on for.
Can I install multiple motion sensors on the same receiver?
So you can take one receiver and you can have motion sensors, different motion sensors scattered throughout the yard. You just learn in the motion sensor, it's a magnet swipe, magnet swipe. The motion sensor would then be paired up and you can place it wherever you'd like. You could take another motion sensor, pair it up, place it in a different location. So a lot of times people will take the motion sensors and put them up in the tree, and the intruder or whoever walks into the yard is not necessarily going to know where the motion sensor is. It doesn't flash red, doesn't give away its position, but the lights will turn on when it sees the motion. So that's the first round of security defense in any security system is motion sensors. Another common place to put motion sensors is at pool locations. When it's dark, if there's kids in the house, it's nice to have lights turn on when somebody walks outside by the pool. It's a nice safety mechanism. The battery life for the motion sensor lasts 3 to 5 years depending on the environment and the conditions. The motion sensor, you're going to want to have it be at least 100 feet within the receiver. You can have multiple motion sensors, but you're going to want to stay within a 300-foot radius of the receiver. The motion sensor can look out at about 30-35 feet, and it looks out at it about an angle of 120 degrees. The best spot to mount the motion sensor is about 11 feet up, and you're going to want to have it face parallel. You're going to want to think to have it face down so that it can see, but the range that it's actually looking is it's already kind of looking down. So you're going to want to have the motion sensor 11 feet up, face parallel, and it's going to look down to get the best range. So the motion sensor can be used to scare small animals away. If you mount it on the ground, you're going to want to have it facing up, and it's going to take a thermal heat signature and see how that heat signature changes. So a smaller animal is not going to be as likely to trigger the motion as a larger animal would, because as the animal comes in, the heat signature's changing bigger for the animal that has more mass. There's a pet immunity in the motion sensor, so that it's in its configuration where it's 11 feet up, it's not going to be able to detect an animal that's 50 pounds or less. Now, as you get closer and closer to the motion sensor, when I wave my hand in front of it, the motion sensor would detect my hand, but obviously my hand's not 50 pounds. But the thermal heat signature from the changing thermal heat signature from my hand is enough to trigger the motion.